Well, this has been an overwhelming week. I mean, seriously, for the news, it's been complete madness. But it's actually mostly great stuff. 10.0.7 is hitting the PTR. We've got great quality of life changes on live. Rat Paladins are getting not just adjustments, but honestly, a bit of a rework. It's kind of wild, so let's get into it. Okay, so the alt skip on the sparks, which of course are needed for the high-end crafting gear, was really nice. I mean, having an alt instantly be able to have 3 or 4 or 5, whatever, bits of normal raid gear, that was pretty awesome. But you probably noticed an issue. Yeah, your alt could get the sparks with the skip, but you probably wouldn't have enough primal chaos. And that sucks if you've got hundreds just stuck in your main, but no longer. A bind on account primal chaos token is now live in-game. It's available from Rabul, the Artisans Consortium Quartermaster in Valdrakken. But there is a downside. Taxation. Yeah, you spend 80 on the token, but you get 60 when you redeem. Now, I can see the design reasons why. They want the optimal way to get it to be your alt, right? But I would then say, well, what happens when the solution to a problem just doesn't feel good, or maybe feels wasteful to a player, because ultimately we are a loss-averse species. That maybe is the point, to encourage playing on alts, but I don't know, encouragement via friction can be a little bit tricky. That's the criticism, but big picture though, this is fantastic. I mean, even for my example, I just leveled my rogue, and now I'll be able to get a lariat amongst a few other really great pieces super early, kickstarting the character. And also, you can actually buy a spark using vault tokens, but it is at a cost of 6 tokens for 1 spark, meaning it'll take 2 weeks of selecting the vault backup option. I mean, I appreciate the utility, but I think that is overall kinda slow. Okay, so that stuff in-game right now to help you out. And also, by the way, the game that we've been working on, The Pale Beyond, launches February 24th, 2023. I will do a full big update video for you guys soon, but first, you can check out the launch trailer over on our studio's YouTube page. You can play the 2+ hour long demo on Steam right now that thus far, I mean straight up, people have been loving, and most importantly of all, wishlist the game, because hey, algorithms man, you know how it is. Till then, here's a bit of loot that our artists have cooked up for Patreon, where with this month's loot we will also have some pale goodies as well. Yeah, it's quite a lot of loot and fun at the links down below, and I think on theme with that sort of thing, let's talk about the trading post. Well, the post has arrived, but it was, well, it was a straight mess at the start. Blizzard actually had to temporarily take the thing down for maintenance to resolve issues. As much as it's exciting to see a lot of players gathered around a big new feature, I guess the overcrowding also could be quite problematic. Initially you basically couldn't see NPC shops or shop items or anything like that because there was just so many players. It was kind of wild. And even for a sampling of issues that people have faced, well, imagine purchasing a transmog item but being a bit out of luck because, well, you bought it, your in-game currency was taken away, but then you didn't get the item. Weird. Additionally, some people have also reported issues with not receiving the mount for filling the big bar, or not receiving it from the chest after looting. So that stuff is shitty and unfortunate. It will all be fixed soon though, and with it, I think, pretty soon being alright, I think it is a bloody brilliant feature, right? They've implemented it quite well. I know there's a decent few items that I already want from the first month. It's nice as an example to get some bandoliers right as I'm making my rogue. Overall then, pretty damn cool. But next, future me here, loads of things happened since I recorded the rest of the news. They're really big, they're pretty hyped, so let's go. Right, Valor and Conquest are going to be uncapped as of February 14th. Now, Blizzard said that they do see the value in capping these currencies initially, right? And it's basically so that people can't go super goblin mode, grind out, all of the Mythic +2s as fast as they can to get loads of Valor, and then, assuming they have a high rating, have extremely good gear extremely early. It would cause big old power disparities that would be a problem. But they also recognize that after those initial weeks, the value of that cap just goes lower and lower and lower and lower, right? So just making it uncapped will feel good for the players. They tweeted this just saying, we agree. Awesome. And the big hope here, I think, is that they will have this as their policy going forward. I mean, hell, imagine this, right? Bind on account Primal Chaos. We have an easier catalyst. We have the alt skip for the inspiration sparks. I mean, man, these are good goddamn times. Next, though, I've got class changes, and I mean, funny, the headline one is Frostwhelp's aid for the Frost DKs. That's been buffed 100%. Which kind of does show that the initial tuning was off. But to go through the most recent hotfixes, Blood DKs, your damage is increased by 5 to 20% across a few abilities. Frost had Frost Fever increased 15%, Glacial Advance 20%, Frost Strike 10%, and Frost Scythe 35%, which is all pretty sweet. I know a lot of Frost players are feeling kind of left behind right now. A lot of them really do want to escape the Breath of Sindragosa world. So yeah, I mean, I wonder if this will help with the tuning. But to move on, Guardian gets a buff to Iron Fur, Reinforced Fur, Bark Skin, Ursox Fury, Reinvigoration, Layered Mane and Lunar Beam. The TLDR there is Blizzard think they were too squishy. Resto Druids. Hey, you've been too powerful for too long, so you're getting a 3% nerf outside of PvP, which I think you can live with. Holy Priests get a 3% buff, while Preservation Evoker, which has been super strong, gets a 5% nerf. Every Hunter spec gets a 5% buff. Mistweavers also get buffs. Prot Paladin is getting a damage buff. Resto Shaman is getting a bunch of 10% buffs. And then both Destro and Affliction are getting single target buffs. And then there was a whole wave of PvP tuning. Wild. I mean, damn, we can hardly write and record a video without Blizzard just sneaking in more changes. It's crazy. I mean, they did this, I guess, late enough in the workday on Friday, the end of the week. It just shows that they really are on fire making these changes, so much more so than the Shadowlands. And finally then, Paragon bags will now have some Primal Chaos in them, a chance of a Dragon Shard of Knowledge, and some Bottled Essence, because otherwise they did feel pretty pants in terms of their rewards. Okay, that's the breaking news. Now back to the still breaking, but more regular news that I recorded last night. Raid Shadowlands gem legends, I guess, because there's a new type of gem called Primordial Stone Gems, and these have been discovered on the 1007 PTR. But unlike other gems, they provide unique effects that have procs, and they've got an item level of 411, and this has understandably led to a bit of an immediate reaction from some people, but I do want to explain it to you because I think a lot of context is being missed. Right, then there's a ring that's called the Onyx Amulet. This has also been found, and it's got 3 gem sockets. Now, these gems have various effects like providing frost armor, healing over time, draining life from enemies, building electrical charge, and many, many more, with them only fitting in the ring that I mentioned. We think. You see, this actually wasn't in Blizzard's patch notes. So yes, it's there in the data mining, but it ain't final, and we don't exactly know how it's going to be. And yes, of course, people are thinking about Domination Shards and getting angry, right? You know, kind of 1 ounce of the borrowed power, and then there's a bunch of fury. And given the last few expansions, I think that's totally understandable, right? I'm not going to blame somebody for that, but I would caution a little bit against it in this instance, because, hey, we've got to be real about, the details. So, what were the problem with Domination Shards? Well, the shards had pretty damn strong relative power, which was very important because they came in at the start of a new raid tier. They also had a really horrible acquisition method because not only was it annoying RNG getting the actual shards, but then getting gear with the sockets was a total hell, especially because the gear with the sockets then clashed with your legendary item slots. So here, if Blizzard gets acquisition right, then it's just a ring that has some things that go in it, and that's basically that. And I think that's okay for this as a small patch feature. It's not going to compete with tier slots or anything like that because it seems to be limited to the ring. It really does seem fine. And also, it's in the context of a patch that's adding a bunch of catch-up gear and isn't adding a raid tier, right? This is basically just I guess a bit of extra power at the end of a raid tier, right? I don't know, maybe Blizzard wants to see if people feel like they can dabble in Mythic once they get a little bit more power, who knows? But perhaps this feels a little bit more like the cogwheel gem stuff from Mechagon, right? Remember the patch that Mechagon came in, where you just had that kind of interestingly designed gear, okay? And that's something we praised back then. So I'd say, I want interesting gear in the game. And I also think we really shouldn't reduce things just to the memes and the sound bites. Because, hey, that stuff can be fun, but also, it did kind of kill our politics and damage our society. So let's try to keep the games reasonable. Is this technically borrowed power? I mean, yeah. Is it big, overarching borrowed power that consumes the whole game? Seemingly not so far. I mean, tier gear, that's technically borrowed power. So really the issue is not about power that we get for a short amount of time. It is about overarching systems design, it is about friction in that design, and it is about the relative balance of things. And that means that I really don't, at this stage, think it's worth being angry about. There's every chance this will actually end up being perfectly fine and decently fun. But look, if it is a load of bullshit, don't worry. I will call it how I see it when it's officially announced and when we know what the final design is. Okay, to move on from the more dramatic topic of the day, we do have an early and incomplete look at patch 10.0.7's Forbidden Reach Zone. That's of course the Draclear starting zone, but brought up to max level with content. Now there does appear to be the usual smattering of rares and treasures, right? Primalist things going on with storms, but also, what really grabbed me was vaults. Loads of Neltharion's vaults are scattered across the island, and to enter them, you need keys. And that reminds me of Lei Shen's vault from patch 5.2, a decade ago, when this channel started, which is a little bit existential. So to move on, it's all themed with the Expedition faction. You're kind of going down there with the team that's got like Pathfinder Jeb in it. And yeah, you're spelunking around vaults for loot. We'll have to fully see how the gameplay ends up being. But certainly I'll say I love the idea of this. I love the style. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the playtesting and really getting into that a lot more soon. Now, on top of all this, of course, we're going to be getting max level story, and per the data mining, very clear foreshadowing of patch 10.1 setting. Theme-wise then, it seems that we're essentially delving into Deathwing's history, right? Or I should say Neltharion, because that's what he was called back before he, went all Deathwing. Kind of getting an insight into his mind as he goes from burdened Earthwarder to the increasingly maddened figure that we would come to know. There's a lot of lore out there being talked about. I will save that for somewhere where I can go into it with the detail that it deserves. I think it is continually building an interesting and fun mystery via lore that is in the game, much like with those lore books in Ultima. So I thought that was pretty cool. Overall then, for a minor patch, I think this is overall quite neat. But there is actually quite a bit more. So here's a bunch of lovely Maruk dog mounts that you can earn, we hope. There's some new hair colors for orcs and humans if you want to go a little bit more vibrant out there. We've got some orc banners representing the clans of Draenor. We've even got a rep grind for the Winterpelt Furbolgs of the Azure Span, which is almost certainly a callback to the vanilla WoW Timbermaw grind. But oddly enough, that's not the end of original WoW-themed content, because, as you'll find out later on, they're actually bringing, seemingly, a bunch back from Zul'Gurub. It's really cool. We'll get to it later. Now, a few shreds of data mining also hint that Bane Bloodhoof might get content, which is kind of insane. I think if so, that's almost certainly Blizzard really realizing all of the memes of Bane just spending Shadowlands sitting on his arse, and then with basically no setup, no delving into Tauren mythology, doing his iconic line. It's just about as iconic as Aiden Pierce's iconic hat, scarf, and jacket from Watch Dogs, where Bane says, "For the Shadowlands!" As if that would really make sense. So I think it's Blizzard basically seeing us clowning in that, kind of implicitly agreeing with us and giving us some Bane content, which would be good, because it seems like whatever plans they had for Bane in Shadowlands were cut. I mean, there's a whole big theory that actually makes a whole ton of sense, that actually lines up with Blizzard's initial marketing, where apparently we learned that Bane would kind of learn the truth of his people and his mythos in the Shadowlands, and that goes to a whole big thing about Anshe, which, yeah, well, look, I'm not going to talk about Anshe and the Jailer. I think that'll get us all mad and confused. Maybe it's for the best that didn't happen. Now, another lovely change. The artifact appearance rewards from the very long Balance of Power questline will be account-wide. This means that if you completed, say, the entire questline on your Paladin, then all other classes on your account will have access to the baseline artifact weapon appearance and the tint that's unlocked via the Balance of Power questline, saving you many, many, many Legion Mythic dungeons, Emerald Nightmare stuff, Nighthold stuff, and a bunch of rep grinds. So, great for your Legion-era transmogs. Heritage Armor time then. Yes, so the Heritage Armor actually did draw quite a lot of criticism for essentially being the usual human footman and orc grunt, not really representing the diversity of each of the factions. You know, the various clans, the various different human kingdoms, you've got... I mean, hey, do you remember going across, like, from the wetlands into Arathi, and then you see all the rebels in, like, their red outfit? Well, turns out, here's the variations. Obviously, uber incomplete, and from data mining. So humans have a robed and not robed variant, which I think will be great for our transmogs. There are 3 colorations, blue, white, and then what the game files call scarlet, which is kind of hilarious because that is, referring to Arathi, not exactly the Scarlets, unless somehow Blizzard would resurrect the plotline that they had intended for the Scarlet Brotherhood, or at the very least, the Scarlet Brotherhood pamphlets that were in Battle for Azeroth, but seemingly that wasn't really carried forward. Who knows? We've not, we haven't seen all the content. To be honest, I would like a little bit more here, but I'm certainly much more happy knowing that we at least have these various different colorations than I had been just initially seeing just the standard blue Stormwind Footman. As for the orcs, you are getting Warsong, Frostwolf, and Blackrock, but nothing on variations yet. And content-wise, there is a questline called the Old Frostwolf that's been data mined, which, I don't know, the Old Frostwolf, I think that's obviously Drekthar. Who knows, it might be his last living appearance, because Drekthar, he really is getting on. Okay, speaking of people who have not been getting on, Paladin time! Okay, so I had our resident Mythic rating Paladin take a look over this. Time to talk about the changes. Now, we're not going to go over every single talent change here, and also, Blizzard have not done a blue post. This is just what's showing up in the data mining. Right? So, let's go! Historically, one of the major weaknesses of the Ret Paladin has been 2 to 3 target cleave, right? Now, you've typically got pretty good potential for mass AoE, but smaller cleave settings have tended to be a bit of an issue historically, and that's where there's actually some fantastic news. There are a ton of new talents that look to improve your cleave. Blade of Vengeance makes Blade of Justice also cleave to nearby enemies. Blessed Champion makes Crusader Strike cleave to 2 additional targets. Boundless Judgment makes Judgment hit 2 additional targets. Do you get the theme? Inquisitor's Ire increases the damage of your next Divine Storm by 5% every 3 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. So, if there's a big AoE moment every 30 seconds, then you just get a juicy 50% stronger Divine Storm. Exciting! Now, there's also a bunch of ways to synergize well with these new cleave talents, which are also going to help improve your throughput consistency outside of major cooldowns and generally make the rotation smoother. So, Expurgation will basically make your Blade of Justice burn the target instead of only on crits. Improved Blade of Justice gives it 2 charges. Light's Celerity reduces the cooldown of Blade of Justice by 4 seconds, which makes it a 8-second cooldown, down from 12. Blazing Blade makes Crusader Strike generate 1 additional holy power. Vanguard's Momentum now makes Hammer of Wrath generate 1 additional holy power when used on enemies below 20% health, so that'll be kind of fun for your pacing. This is, of course, in addition to it giving Hammer of Wrath an extra charge and more crit chance, which is major hype. Now, all of these should really help, with your holy power generation. It'll feel less clunky, more streamlined, though, of course, right now we don't really know how these talents will be competing with each other on the tree. Now, also, you've got an extra 6 seconds of execution sentence with one of the talents, which is pretty damn nice for your windows, because in combination with the increased holy power generation, you can basically fit more spenders within that big damage amplification window, which you can do every minute. I'll feel pretty good. Now, there's also a bunch of talents that make many of your holy damaging spells do physical damage as well. This is like for Divine Storm, for Blade of Justice, for Judgment. And this will mean that those abilities will be buffed by physical damage buffs, and they'll also damage enemies who are immune or less impervious to magic damage. So pretty nice. Now, another really great talent is Punishment. It makes your successful interrupts with Rebuke cast Templar's Verdict, which actually makes your interrupt your best throughput thing. Like in those situations, you should definitely be taking priority interrupts. So for some people, this is more of a reason to have responsibility, which is bad. For other people, it's more of a reason to shine. On the survivability front, there's a lot incoming. So some things are just flat increases to tankiness and healing abilities. Others are passive that take effect through your damaging abilities. So Light's Clarity buffs Flash of Light by 50% and makes it an instant cast, but with a 6-second cooldown. You've got Answered Prayer, which will cast a free Word of Glory whenever you drop below 40% health, and it'll do that every 60 seconds. There's a placeholder talent that makes Templar's Verdict deal 10% increased damage and heal you for 100% of the damage that it does. Templar's Verdict will also do 50% increased damage on stunned targets. I mean, man. Healing Burst that makes Divine Storm heal you for a percentage of your maximum health. Lightforged Blessing makes Divine Storm deal 10% increased damage and heals you and nearby allies for 5% max health. Crusader's Reprieve makes your Crusader Strike deal 10% increased damage and heal you for 3% maximum health. Zealot's Fervor makes your auto attacks 20% faster and heal you for 1% of your maximum health. Quite a lot there. And I think what's great about a lot of passive healing talents is they also buff your damaging abilities by quite a bit. So you shouldn't be in a situation where like you massively have got to trade off DPS for a bit more baseline survivability. Now, there also were a bunch of new raw throughput increasing talents, but they're not really as interesting or impactful to the core gameplay, so I thought we'd just gloss over them considering it's early days. I'm sure we'll do a full video on this rework when it's properly in. But overall then, these are poised to smooth out the damage curve, increase holy power generation, make cleave damage more competitive, and improve survivability and self-sustain, which have all been major pain points for the Retribution Paladin. Yeah. So far, it looks like brilliant news, but we just do need to see what talents actually make it into the game and how they are positioned in the tree. But goddamn, for something that is on the PTR like, 2 months after the expansion came out, that's bloody incredible. Okay, let's talk about that old world content I teased earlier. So, we've got new transmog ensembles, profession recipes for some really cool visual gear, and some achievements that have been uncovered in the latest PTR build. We've got the Zul'Gurub ensembles, which are named after the original crafted and Zul'Gurub tier sets from Vanilla. And this seems to work via a new currency, the Hikari Baiju. This will be used to purchase the related legacy recipes and ensembles. And to obtain that currency, you first got to restore an ancient Hikari. Is it a Baiju? Is it a Bijou? I'm not really sure. But you basically combine a shattered one with a fragment, and once done, you can then collect various different colored variants. I don't really know how we get this. It's just something that's in the data mining. But at the very least, right, we do have the idea here of some of that older, more vanilla content just being relevant again. Who knows what the gameplay is going to end up like. And hey, even if it is just like a simple old school like item grind, I think this is still a good thing to have in the game, and funny enough, Zul'Gurub ain't the end, because a new achievement referencing the Argent Dawn and Naxxramas has been discovered that I guess is, yes, hinting at more vanilla-era content on the way. The achievement, which is called Craftsman of the Argent Dawn, rewards players for aiding in the Argent Dawn's assault against Naxxramas using their crafting skills. So that's neat. Really, I just think that's awesome. That's like the kind of thing that I'd like to see in the game more. I mean, I did see there's a tweet from somebody who works in World of Warcraft that they basically just referenced, opening opening the old world in the editor at work, and that obviously caught on like wildfire over on Twitter. So yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. Who knows where that will go? Again, though, I think we're seeing a pretty damn strong Blizzard. The content cadence is strong. The patch 10.07 PTR is like right up straight after 10.05 launches, and I know there was a bit of mess with the 10.05 launch, but look, I'll take a little bit of mess here and there if it is helping us get to this cadence that just has World of Warcraft, just having stuff going on all year round instead of the crazy content droughts that we have been used to. Good news then, essentially. Now, if you want to do something next, you can check out the Pale Beyond's launch trailer over, on the link below. Wishlist it on Steam, of course. You can check out our Patreon, where there is much loot, amongst other cool things. And if you want to check out a video, then how about our piece on the evolution of dragons? I know that might seem rather dry, but trust me, it isn't. It's really, really cool seeing how these things are actually developed. So if you want 23 minutes of some pretty interesting listening and watching, well, head up the link. Okay, have a great day. See you later.